This is not just another message. This is a spiritual transmission for those who have been marked by something ancient, a calling that whispers not in sound, but in sensation. If you are here, it is not by mistake. Thoth's message has found you, because you are one of the ones who were never meant to stay blind. For over 3,000 years, a technique was kept hidden, not to punish, but to protect. A technique so powerful, it awakened a vision beyond the physical eyes, a perception that could see the hidden architecture of reality. This vision was never about magic. It was about remembrance, about reconnecting with a function that exists deep within your being, a spiritual instrument that has always been waiting in silence for your awareness to return. But to hear Thoth's message, you must understand something first. You have always lived between two worlds. This is not poetry. It is not metaphor. It is truth, a truth older than civilization itself. The ancients knew it, the sages recorded it, and the initiates protected it. Two layers of reality overlapping, each moment, one visible, tangible, noisy, the other silent, energetic, and vibrational. Most live and die in the first, but a few, the chosen, begin to sense the second. They feel what others can't. They see what others call impossible. And not because they are special, but because they are ready. You may have noticed it already. A strange stillness when entering certain rooms. An inner chill with no explanation. A sudden sense that time slowed down, stretched, or cracked. These are not accidents. They are evidence. Signs that your inner vision is awakening. Signs that the veil is no longer sealed. And Thoth, known by many names, Hermes Trismegistus, the keeper of hidden wisdom, left behind a path for those who could see with more than just their eyes. His message was not meant for the world. It was meant for those who had begun to remember. And if you've made it this far, it means something in you has already started to awaken. You are not learning this, you are reclaiming it. You are not discovering something new. You are recognizing what has always been there, waiting beneath the noise. By the end of this message, if you choose to walk the path, you will not only understand how to see beyond the hidden, you will feel it. You will remember how to access the vibrational code that opens your inner portal, the gateway that no one can give you and no one can take from you. And I do not speak this from theory. I speak from the deep night, from the silence where nothing made sense anymore, and then everything did. I have walked the edge between logic and madness, between light and shadow. And in that space, I heard what cannot be heard with ears. I saw what cannot be seen with eyes. That is where this message is born. If your soul has stirred while listening, if something deeper than thought begins to rise as you hear these words, write in the comments, "I'm ready to see beyond." And subscribe now, not for content, but for continuation, because this awakening has just begun. Now let us enter the first layer, the veil that was placed upon your perception long ago. You were not born blind to the unseen. On the contrary, you came into this world already holding the seed of true vision, not the kind that looks outward, but the kind that perceives inward. Before you had words, you had knowing. Before you trusted what your eyes showed you, you trusted what your soul whispered. You didn't need proof, because presence was enough. And yet, as you grew, something happened. A slow silencing, a subtle interruption, a system was put in place, not to educate your perception, but to bury it. You were taught to doubt what couldn't be measured, to fear what couldn't be explained. You learned to abandon the subtle in favor of the solid. Imagination, they called it, when you saw what others could not. Coincidence, they said, when you felt what others denied. And so, layer by layer, the sacred function of your inner eye, your true compass, began to dim, not because it broke, but because it was dismissed, forgotten, laughed at, conditioned into silence. But Thoth never forgot. The initiates of old never lost this knowing. They saw what modern eyes cannot see. They remembered what society trained you to ignore, that within every being lies a lens, a subtle mechanism of perception beyond the five senses. Ancient tradition spoke of it as the seat of divine awareness, a portal between the visible and the eternal. In Egypt, it was connected to the Eye of Horus. In Vedic wisdom, it was the Ajna chakra. In hidden Hermetic texts, it was referred to only in symbols, because its activation was too sacred, too dangerous to be spoken plainly. This is the eye behind your eyes and the gateway through which spirit sees. And it does not operate through logic. It operates through alignment, vibration, frequency, feeling. It cannot be forced, only tuned. And for most of your life, this tuning was off, drowned by noise, dulled by distraction, disrupted by the pull of a world that rewards performance over presence. But now, in moments of stillness, you've begun to feel it again. That inner flicker, that pulse between thoughts, that breath of perception that comes before your mind has words to describe. It's not imagination. It's memory, not fantasy, but faculty, a divine one. The vision you are reactivating is not symbolic. It is functional. It does not belong to mystics alone. It belongs to you. And though society may have suppressed it, though systems may have distracted you from it, the eye within you has never truly closed. It only waited, patiently, silently, for the moment you would stop looking outward for what could only be seen, within. And that moment is arriving. But to access what's beyond the veil, you must first learn the language it speaks. A language Thoth encoded not in words, but in vibration, and only those who feel can truly receive it. You've always felt it. That truth was never meant to be explained like a formula, but revealed like a memory. That real wisdom isn't something you memorize, but something that awakens inside you. And this is exactly why Thoth's knowledge was never meant for the masses. It wasn't hidden out of greed. It was veiled out of necessity. Because only those who could feel beyond language, those whose perception had already begun to shift, were ready to receive it. Thoth, also known as Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, was not simply a figure of mythology. He was a gatekeeper of memory, a messenger between worlds, a recorder of the laws that govern not just matter, but meaning. And the truths he carried were never given in plain sight. They were encoded, layered into symbols, etched into vibration, and sealed behind metaphors that only the initiated could decode. Not because they were better, but because they were ready. Their inner frequency had reached a point of resonance, and so the teachings would activate only for those whose souls were tuned to receive them. The Emerald Tablet, for instance, has been read for centuries, but few have truly heard it, because those words are not just poetic, they are energetic. Each phrase carries a current, a pulse, a vibration that bypasses logic and enters the inner eye. As above, so below is not a riddle, it's a mirror. As within, so without is not philosophy, it's the law of perception. And this law cannot be understood through analysis. It must be felt, lived, and embodied. That's why the true transmission of this knowledge never came through books or lectures. It was passed silently from master to student, from soul to soul, through gaze, breath, presence, through alignment. Because language is too small to carry what must be remembered, not explained, and yet something in you remembers. That's why these words don't feel new, they feel ancient, familiar. That's why you're not learning, you're recognizing, because this isn't the first time you've encountered this path, it's just the first time you're ready to walk it awake. This inner vision Thoth taught about, you've touched it. In dreams, in moments between thoughts, in flashes of knowing that made no rational sense, but felt undeniably true. And now that you're seeing beyond the hidden, a question arises, not from your mind, but from your spirit. Am I truly ready to see what lies beyond the veil? If this message resonated with something you can't explain, but deeply feel, write in the comments, I remember the hidden. Let this be your signal to the unseen and to others walking the same path. There comes a moment on every sacred path when words are no longer enough, when explanation gives way to experience, when the door no longer opens from the outside, but from the inside, and only through vibration. What Thoth left behind was not a belief system, but a method, a ritual not to be memorized, but to be felt, a living sequence encoded into breath, intention, and presence, known as the 7 breaths. The number 7 was never random. In nearly every ancient tradition, it echoes as a sacred signature. 7 chakras, 7 heavens, 7 tones, 7 days. But in this context, 7 is not just a symbol. It is a sequence, a ladder of breath that leads you inward, step by step, toward the activation of the inner eye. And unlike rituals locked in temples or cloaked in incense, this one is different. It doesn't require a priest, a guru, or even belief. Only willingness, only attention, only the courage to be still. It begins simply, with air, with the sacred act of inhaling, but not just to survive, to awaken. Each breath in this ritual is a key, and the lock it turns is inside you. On the first breath, you inhale deeply and imagine golden light entering you. It doesn't matter if you can see it clearly, just trust what arises. On the exhale, you let go, not just of air, but of weight, the illusions, the rush, the noise. Then the second breath moves upward. That golden light begins to concentrate. At the center of your forehead, the space between your eyebrows, the seat of your subtle perception. As you breathe out, you imagine a mist lifting, not from the air, but from your mind. And with each breath forward, something ancient stirs. A warmth, a pressure, a sensation you can't quite describe. By the fourth breath, it begins to move beyond your body. Your limits blur, boundaries fade. You're not imagining, you're remembering how to feel what's always been there. By the sixth breath, you're no longer guiding anything. You're simply surrendering, floating, and on the seventh, time disappears. Thoughts grow silent. You're not in the world. You're in the space between worlds. A threshold where reality softens and something else begins to take shape. This is not visualization. It's not imagination. It's resonance. And when the 3 inner elements, sacred silence, conscious breath, and directed attention, vibrate together in harmony, something opens. Not with noise, but with recognition. The veil does not tear, it simply dissolves. And what was always hidden is no longer out there. It is here, within. But this opening, while sacred, is not the peak. It is the preparation. For now, you've entered the space where frequencies shift, and so must your understanding of what is real. What if the reality you know is merely one layer of a much wider spectrum? What if your consciousness, like a dial on an ancient radio, has always been capable of tuning into dimensions the physical eye was never built to see? To understand inner vision, we must first understand the sacred dance of the brain, not as a machine, but as a transmitter of light and shadow, of known and unknown. Your mind is not static. It flows, it pulses, it sings across waves of awareness that few have ever been taught to notice. In the waking state, your brain operates mostly in beta waves, the realm of logic, reaction, and task. It's where society keeps you alert, productive, and distracted, but it's also the most agitated frequency, where thoughts spin fast and the spiritual signal is weakest. But when you begin to quiet the mind, through silence, breath, and presence, you descend into alpha, the frequency of intuition, creativity, and receptivity. Here the chatter lessens, space opens. Artists, seers, and mystics have always dipped into this current to touch inspiration that comes not from thought, but from something beyond. Go deeper still, and you find theta, the bridge between waking and dreaming, between the conscious and subconscious. This is where children live. This is why they perceive what adults have forgotten. It is where forgotten memories rise like mist, and where the unseen begins to flicker into view. And if you have ever had a dream so vivid, it felt more real than waking, you were there, in the realm of inner sight. Then there is Delta, the realm of deep sleep, cellular repair, and spiritual renewal. In advanced states of meditation, some reach this place while fully awake. Here, time stops, identity dissolves, and the soul breathes without interference. This map of frequencies is not theoretical, it is experiential. And as your attention returns to the point between your brows, the center of perception, you are not imagining activation. You are initiating it. You are beginning to resonate not just with light, but with truth. With the silent architecture that lives behind matter, colors sharpen, sounds soften, thoughts slow. You begin to feel not only your emotions, but the energetic imprint of others. You sense not only spaces, but their charge, their weight, their memory. And this is the gift, but also the threshold. For as your inner vision strengthens, you do not just see beauty, you begin to see everything. The illusions, the distortions, the unseen forces that once guided your life without permission. And with this awakening comes the one challenge that few speak about, but which every chosen one must face. When you activate your inner vision, you do not just open a doorway to light, you open a gateway to truth. And truth, unlike fantasy, does not seek to entertain you. It seeks to transform you. But before it can do so, it must test you. Not to punish you, but to prove you. To see if you are truly ready to see beyond the hidden. The ancient initiates knew this. Thoth knew this. That is why the pathway was concealed through symbols, metaphors, rituals, and breath. Because not every soul is prepared to witness what lies behind the veil, and not every heart is mature enough to hold the power of perception without distorting it. So when the veil begins to lift, the guardians appear, not as monsters or demons, but as internal forces, reflections of your own unresolved fragments. The first is doubt, a deep, disorienting question that whispers, what if this isn't real? What if I'm making it all up? But this isn't a flaw. It is the first test. Will you trust the perception of your soul or retreat back into the blindness of consensus? Then comes fear. Not fear of darkness, but fear of truth, fear of letting go, fear of surrendering control. It arrives as resistance, as a sudden desire to return to the comfort of distraction. It asks, are you willing to leave behind who you thought you were? And then there is impatience, the mind's demand for immediate results, for signs, proof, validation. But inner vision does not obey speed. It is like a sacred flower that only blooms in stillness. If you force it, you close it. But perhaps the most subtle and the most dangerous is the spiritual ego, the voice that says, now that I see, I am better, I am chosen, I am above. This illusion is the final trap, because true inner vision cannot coexist with arrogance. It only flows through the current of humility. Those who try to possess, it will find it slipping through their grasp. And now that the vision has begun to open, you face the final question, the one that echoes through all spiritual paths. What will you do with it? Because seeing is not the end, it is the beginning. The true work begins not in visions, but in how you walk with them, how you live with them, how you anchor them into a world that still sleeps. The light you've glimpsed must now become the light you carry. And that is the threshold of your next initiation. You did not find this message by coincidence, and now you know why. Because even before your eyes read these words, something in you had already begun to awaken. A vibration, a question, a quiet knowing that the world in front of you was only part of the whole. And now the invisible has begun to reveal itself, not as fantasy, but as reality long forgotten. You are not here to learn something new. You are here to remember. Remember that you've always been between two worlds, that your mind may forget, but your soul does not, that the eyes of your body were never meant to show you the full truth, but the eye of the spirit. That was always waiting for you to be still enough to hear, present enough to see, and courageous enough to return. Because awakening the inner vision is not a gift for the elite, It is a birthright for the true. It does not belong to the chosen few. It belongs to those who choose. Those who choose to feel instead of escape, to slow down instead of numb, to face the hidden currents that shape reality instead of living as a victim of them. And you have chosen. Simply by coming this far, you've said yes. Yes to seeing. Yes to remembering. Yes to returning to the sacred current that has always pulsed beneath the illusion of form. But now comes the real invitation. The one that Thoth whispered to the initiates in temples of stone and silence. The one that echoes still in the breath of every true seeker. The one that begins after the vision opens. Will you live by it? Will you walk with it? Because inner vision is not a show. It is a responsibility. To see is not to escape. To see is to serve. It means no longer participating in the illusions you once believed in. It means reading between the lines of reality and choosing truth even when it costs you comfort. It means using perception not as power over others, but as alignment with the sacred laws that govern both seen and unseen. It is not easy. The world does not reward inner sight. It fears it. Because those who truly see can no longer be manipulated, can no longer be controlled by fear, scarcity, or superficiality. And so the world may push back, but so will your light. Because now it has been lit again. Your perception will never be the same. The way you listen, feel, sense, none of it is random. You are starting to feel vibrations you once ignored. You are beginning to hear messages without words. You are seeing intentions behind, and this is only the beginning. Because once the portal is activated, the transmission begins. You will dream differently, walk differently, choose differently. Not because you are trying to, but because your inner compass has realigned. The breath, the silence, the attention, they have stirred the lens of the spirit. And now, life begins to reflect that shift. The sacred reveals itself not through fireworks, but through pattern, through subtle confirmation, through the deep, inner yes that comes when you know something is real, not because it was proven, but because it was remembered. This is how Thoth taught. Not through facts, but through frequency. And that frequency is still echoing through sacred texts, through forgotten dreams, through the eyes of those who have dared to look away from the wall of shadows and toward the flame within. You are one of them now, a seer, not because you claim to be, but because you can no longer unsee what has been shown. So what comes next? Not a path paved for you, not a map drawn by others, but a call, a soft, persistent call that only you can hear. A pull toward authenticity, toward silence, toward purpose. You will know you're on the right path, not by how many follow you, but by how many illusions fall away. And as that happens, you will not be alone. Because the vision doesn't just connect you to yourself, it connects you to others, to those who carry the same remembrance, who speak a language deeper than words, who feel the shift, who walk the edge of worlds, just like you. They are finding you, just as you are finding them. And this message is part of that connection. So now, as your breath slows and your inner gaze returns to the space behind your eyes, feel this truth settle deep into your bones. You have not just heard a message, you have answered a call. And from this point forward, the world will ask you to forget again, to go back to sleep, to doubt what cannot be seen. But something in you will refuse. Something in you will keep seeing because the eye has opened, and it does not close. So if this message touched something in you, let it ripple outward. Let it be anchored in your action. Speak it, share it, reflect it, live it. And before you continue your path, anchor this awakening with a simple ritual. Write in the comments, "My inner vision has awakened," not to impress, but to declare to yourself and to the field around you. And if you feel called to continue this journey, subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a path. Because the next messages will go even deeper. You have crossed the veil. You have reactivated what was hidden. And now the true work begins, not in secrecy, but in presence, not in temples, but in every breath, every choice, every step. You are seen, you are guided, you are ready. We'll meet again in the next transmission.